Last week was an adventure. For many drivers, Circuit of the Americas was one of the most difficult races for the calendar. Several different drivers struggled to conquer its corners, but in the end, it was one driver who dominated them all. Brandon Hawkins started off the campaign in dominant fashion, sweeping both stages, topping all test and qualifying sessions, as well as coming away with the race victory. But today, these drivers are all set for another challenge. It's time for Race 2 of Right Around the Roadies, presented by Fort Worth Screen Printing. It's the McConey Setup Shop Wine Valley 100, and it's live on SDN Racing. Good evening, I'm Justin Prince. Alongside of the booth tonight is Blake McCandless with Zach Johnson in the director's seat for what's expected to be another difficult race for these competitors. The first race of the campaign seen several drivers trying to keep up with the pace of the racetrack, but for tonight, it's one that's been well known for many years, but for its layout, more so used in recent times for just a few years, and even more so back in the 1980s and 90s, Blake. This is going to be an entertaining race once more for this series.
Oh, it certainly is. And looking out at the practice, and even we just had a little brief chat with race control before we got going in this thing, and they are talking about how treacherous this track is, how much they anticipate that they may have to throw some yellow flags that they initially weren't expecting. And it's going to be really interesting here. You see everybody out here for group qualifying just kind of pacing around. Of course, you see Brandon Hawkins right there, somebody that I've known for a long time, that is both good at the ovals, but the road courses are where he really shines. So we'll see if he's up for the bill tonight once again.
Let's take a look at your track preview for tonight, and talking about this racetrack. 2.53 miles tonight, 0.407 kilometers around this circuit. Blake, talk us through this circuit.
Well, and Sonoma is very, very difficult. And of course, with the addition of this different configuration, you know, a lot of these drivers, like myself, have really been used to about 18 some odd years or so, of even more, of just running on this configuration. But we'll take you through here. Turns 1 and 2, pretty stellar. And actually, let's go ahead and ride along here with Brandon Hawkins. We'll pick him up here. We've got about 12 minutes left in qualifying. And we'll kind of take you for a lap around here. Hard braking zone right here. And of course, the hairpin here, turn 11, is one of the more difficult places to get on. You're going to have to save your rear tires both on the exit. Slight left-hander here into turn 12 as we'll go to the start-finish line, and we'll take you for a full lap around right now. Turn 1 uphill, and you can see Hawkins, he wasn't able to make it, so he's going to go right off the racetrack. I think he was on his hot lap previous. He takes the pole time, but there you see right there, I think that tells you everything you need to know about how hard it is to kind of go uphill and try to get that lap completed.
Did I mention that this track is difficult? Drivers spent multiple days testing setups and trying to prepare for this circuit. Some of them took part in all of the track practices. It shouldn't be surprised that Brandon Hawkins was one of the quickest in all of those sessions in the 130s. He has a 130.378 at the moment. Parker Klugerman, Nate Stewart, Colin Fern, and Nicholas Sanchez, the current top 5. Heckert just bumped out Sanchez to move up to 3rd. One of the other drivers who has been quick throughout the testing and throughout practice tonight is Brad Perez. He's looking to carry a bit of momentum for the last race as well. Had a solid second half of the first race.
And Perez, somebody that can obviously shine on these road courses as well. You think about Nate Storr, that's a name I've heard for quite a while, as we see going second up on the board is Parker Kligerman. 131.0, still about 7/10 off of what Brandon Hawkins was able to put up. But Kligerman will best that once again. A lot of drivers right in that 131, 132 range. But it's interesting to see kind of how everybody was playing this, Justin. We saw a lot of drivers just kind of, I won't say just kind of cruising around, not hoping to kind of light up those rear tires on their first lap, and then obviously coming for their lap, it's about a minute and a half. We still have 10 minutes left, so there's plenty of time for resets as Perez goes for a little bit of a spin here in turn 11 in the hairpin. You see he'll just pull it right to a stop, and that's got to be so frustrating. You go all the way through, you think you have a good lap going, and all of a sudden turn 11 is what gets you. But that is such a difficult zone, especially here at iRacing with these stock cars. turn 11 is so difficult because it's all about downshifting. It's all about throttle management, getting back to the gas. Anybody well knows if you've run these stock cars here in iRacing before on road courses, you have to be able to conserve those rear tires. And I think there's no better example of going through turn 11 and seeing that.
Today may be a venture for some of these competitors. Let's talk about the championship specifically. That's presented by Fort Worth Screen Printing. For all your retail and contract screen printing needs, visit fwscreen.com. Shipping is available nationwide. We talked about Brandon Hawkins sweeping the stages. Those are 10 points apiece in these races. He also secured the pole, which is 3 points. That also sponsored by Fort Worth Screen Printing. He has that 3-point advantage as a result over Scott List-Ramler, who kept up with that mark to make up for the pole award by winning the Overton Speed Shop Fastest Lap Award. Then Scott Heckert scored 54 points exiting that race. Will Rogers, Brad Perez in the top 5, Arlo Columbia, Bailey Curry, Dylan Barr, Colin Fern, and Eric Prue with the top 10 separation, just about 30 points in that gapping. The main thing is, though, Parker Kogerman just scored a grand total of 17 points after that race. 5 stage points, 12 finishing points. This is a massive improvement for the Baron Kluger Mini Sports owner as well as the NBC Sports announcer.
It is a big pickup for him, and I'm really liking to see kind of how smooth that 77 Valvoline Toyota looks. And golly, this is just such a different take on this road course. I know I'm somebody that's just been so accustomed to the old layout of this racetrack, and that's something that even I'm just going to have to get used to here, seeing those guys get hard on the brakes in that hairpin for turn 7, and not even taking, I guess, the traditional turn right after that, a little bit of a longer right-hander. But this is where it becomes a little bit more familiar territory. And by the way, I have to correct myself. Food Country USA is on the hood of that race car, not just obviously the Valvoline scheme you see wrapped around it. You see, he almost gets into the tire barrier. And he gets a little loose off the corner. That's going to be a lap that I don't think he was very proud of.
He's still P2 with a 131 flat at the moment. Jacob Fisher still P3, a 131.2. Scott Heckert, of course, with a lot of road course experience, raced, remember, for DJ McLeod's team of the 78 on some of the road courses, P4. Nate Stewart, P5, who runs with FTF Racing and various other series, including on the road course side. As well, though, you can't talk about Sonoma without talking about the car you see here, or just seen. That was Will Rogers for Space Station Gaming. If you remember a few years back, when at the time called the K&N Pro Series came here, the West Series specifically, he outqualified Kevin Harvick in that race and finished second to him. He's also won a few of those types of races for what is now called the Arca Menard Series, or those divisions for the East and West. Blake, he has also been lightning quick, to say the very least. He was the first driver the entire week who broke into the 130s in testing.
And I was about to say he's tracking a lap right now, obviously a 157 on the board. I don't imagine that that will keep up, but he needs to run well on this lap. 6 minutes left, and the time is continuing to wind down. This is the money lap for Will Rogers, so to speak. And I don't know. I've been following along with him. It looks very, very smooth. Of course, it's hard to tell from the eye test exactly where these guys will end up, but Rogers definitely tracking something that looks like will put him at the front of the field. Turn 11, very smooth, gets back to the gas quick, not too much of a wiggle out of the rear end of that race car. Let's see what it is as a Space Station Gaming machine will cross the line. Just short of P2 right there. He's going to give a little jump into the air, clears himself into the crowd, but nevertheless up on the podium there in qualifying.
Just living up to his team's name, right? Right? That's a 3-4, by the way, for his team as they try and launch their way up to the top. There were a couple rule changes of note as well, which were made from the last race, specifically updates to the rule book. The key part is minimum speed was instituted, called the 125% rule, in that for the top driver in practice, there had to be a 25-second difference between what that next driver was able to run. The minimum speed for today per race control, a 154.2, If drivers run below that speed, they can be warned up to 3 times before they are told to park. There is also now a grand total of, if there were more than 40 entries, for example, for a race, anyone 41st or lower does not officially score points as a result, to clarify things on that side with the amount of pit stalls available at the racetrack, since it will be the max available per specific circuit on the iRacing service. Those are two of the key things. Keep in mind as well with the stages, no caution flags in this series. They will, however, if need be, throw one if someone, say, blocks the pit lane or gets into a significant incident.
You know, I've raced in a series where it was the FTF Verizon Cup Series a couple of years ago, albeit it was on a bit of an older sim in R2003. But, you know, I do love the addition of having stages but not having cautions. It brings such a different dynamic. It truly makes you kind of gamble, because obviously if we're going to go to a stage caution, everybody knows we're going to get a reset and all that. Without cautions, you really have to kind of decide, do you want to go for a more stage heavy strategy? Do you want to try and get a better overall finish as you see a car slide up and off the racetrack? I love the element that it brings, because it really does, especially here with road course racing. I think we've seen in NASCAR Cup Series how much stage racing kind of changes the dynamic of how those stages are run. So I really like the addition of forcing drivers to either go all the way through with it, or, you know, obviously there's a lot of different strategies you can have without having a stage yellow at the end.
Absolutely. Taking a look, by the way, at Preston Pardis trying to come across the stripe. A 132.6 as his best time was 2/100ths off that P11. He's among the drivers who might have some good improvement. He's put in a ton of sim racing experience. Same can be said for drivers, say, Ryan Vargas. We talked already about Parker Kligerman's improvement. I think you can also lump into that grouping as well a couple others, such as Colin Ford, who has been really quick this week. He was lightning quick the second half of the race and was a top 5 car in practice.
No, he is, and he looks strong right here. We only have 2 minutes left, so this is really the last chance for these drivers. They won't be able to go back to pit road and reset. So if they're pulling a lap right now, they're gonna have to live with it. And Fern approaching the line, this is gonna be one of his chances to try and improve on that. However, right in front of him, AJ Henderson, the controller king, as we often know him, he's able to get by that traffic right there. But this is their last opportunity. Oh, a big slide out of Fern. Able to keep it on the racetrack, though. It looks like he'll count. Yep. No 1X in that, so he'll be able to count that lap.
Now, competitors once again are fighting for the Fort Worth Screen Printing Pull Award. For all your retail and contract screen printing needs, visit fwscreen.com. They ship nationwide for their products. These cars continue to wheel the way around this racetrack for that pole. Only one driver who's logged in an official time has not technically met that minimum speed. That's Jared Mackey, who is 22nd. The drivers who have not set times, though, there's a lot of surprising ones. Scott List Rambler, Michael Frisch, Matt Weishart, Benjamin Fanning, Jason Samaro, and John Garrett have all not set times in this qualifying session. And some of those drivers, mind you, were front runners and mid-pack especially runners, and good for some stage points last round, Blake.
Yeah, and I know especially we've seen Michael Frisch really all week, and I've seen him in a couple of different series. This really isn't out of the ordinary for Michael Frisch not to pull a time in qualifying, to start in the back. And you know, he's obviously very quick and capable of being up in the front of the field very early on. So not surprised to see him. I'm surprised to see Matt Wishart. Not sure if he's been on the racetrack. He's kind of slid off a couple of times. Yeah. John Garrett is sitting on pit road. But I would say for Frisch, this is kind of business as usual. And obviously, he's a very capable driver. Can go up and try to battle some of these guys as well.
Talk about Wishart. He's on the racetrack. And here's the thing. Time is run out. Drivers will have 2 minutes and 13 seconds to complete their times, and Wishart will not be able to put one in the Bar Visuals car. He puts it in the fence. Dalen Barr, mind you, was P9 last week and got the Monstop Shop 5-checker award as your biggest mover. So a tough break for him as the rest of the drivers look to complete their current laps. Only 4 on track. Devin Mistak who would finish his 17th on the board, Brandon Hawkins, who's still on the track, Fanning, who hasn't even been able to get a completed warm-up lap, and that's about it on the racetrack, who can set an official time.
And I thought I saw the time click over earlier, but apparently I was a little mistaken by that. It's 1 minute 30 left in our 15-minute open qualifying session. You can see right there, Hawkins going to pull off the racetrack. Red Bull machine is off. Oh, it looks like Devin Mistack is also sliding around here, and it looks like he's going to go for a spin here through turn 11, right next to kind of the drag strip here at Sonoma. Benjamin Fanning, yeah, I'm not sure how many of these drivers will be able to put down a final qualifying time, and yeah, I think everybody's just kind of waiting on the end of it here. Preston Pardis might be able to do so if he's coming to the line, but it looks like he's kind of slowing up, so I don't think he's on a heater either. So I think that'll about wrap things up, and a great lap time by Brandon Hawkins put down once again, trying to capitalize and just go for a little bit of a roll. Why don't you?
A lot of these drivers having some fun, to say the very least. So 40 seconds until the drivers make their way to the starting grid at this point. Your expectations for this race, especially since there is going to be a lot to talk about during the pace lap.
Expectations really kind of are going to rely on this field to get spread out again. We talked about how treacherous it is here at Sonoma, so not making mistakes is going to be paramount to doing well. Hot track temperature right now. We were talking with race control. Track temperature is pretty high. Not really holding back a whole lot. 65-degree ambient temperature, 105 right now out on the racetrack. So again, with these road courses, every little degree you go up, it all becomes about conserving those rear tires, and especially here at a road course where there's a lot of long, slow, winding corners. That's going to be key for these guys to keep those tires underneath them.
Qualifying is wrapped up. It's time to take a look at your starting grid. The driver who won the Fort Worth Screen Printing Pole Award for the second time in a row, and 3 more bonus points. It's Brandon Hawkins at the front of the field. The Movado Sim Racing driver will start alongside Parker Klugerman. Klugerman, his best qualifying performance so far in 2 races. Scott Heckard was a front runner all race at Coda. He'll start P3 alongside Will Rogers. Jacob Fisher rounds out the top 5 for the Space Station Gaming cars, while Nate Stort starts in P6. Colin Fern from Brandon Built Motorsports starts in P7, with Nicholas Sanchez with a good qualifying run in 8th position. Rounding at your top 10 starting positions tonight, it's Brad Perez, along with Eric Prewitt, who looks to bump up his performance in the Kentucky Proud car.
Preston Pardis will roll off to the inside of row number 6. It'll be Jacob Armstrong who starts alongside him in the 12th position. 13th starting spot will go to AJ Henderson. 14th will go to Ryan Vargas. 15th is Maman Rahman. 16th is Arnold Columbia. 17th goes to Devin Mistack. 18th is Roger Gregory. Starting 19th is Ricky Paz. And then, of course, 20th is Lee Overton.
Coming to in 21st position, Benjamin Branscombe in that position. Once again, streaming his perspective on the University of Kentucky's Twitch streams. Well, Jared Mackey did not reach that minimum speed total. He will have to pick up the pace of the race, 22nd with a 2:02 in qualifying. The drivers at the back of the field, surprisingly, Scott List Rambler, who came home 2nd last week, will start in that position, possibly looking for some additional points to keep up with Hawkins. While Wishart, Frisch, Fanning, John Garrett, and Jason Semerol round out your 28 entries at Sonoma Raceway. Now, for the McCody Setup Shop Wine Valley 100, here is how things will fare out. 50% fuel once more, fixed setups. Stages are laps 10, 20, and 4, and the end of the race is lap 40. Drivers, in turn, will have to complete that specific lap for each stage to secure their points. Once again, this race sponsored by McConey Setup Shop. McConey Setup Shop is your home for iRacing setups. With everything from the Legends to the Cup cars, we've got you covered. Dirt setups are available from World of Outlaws pro driver Evan C. as well. Head on over to McConeySetupShop.com today. You can't beat the best, so don't settle for the rest. And at the end, include our setups, your victories. Drivers getting ready, your quick keys to victory.
Well, I think, like we've mentioned before, keeping those rear tires under you is going to be key. Not making mistakes. We know a lot of guys can come out here and they can run really fast for single lap times. Being able to keep that up over a long period of time is going to be paramount. Really, anything that you would expect in road course racing. Keeping the fenders on it, keeping it on the track, and then keeping those rear tires engaged is something that is so important when you talk about these stock cars and coming onto road courses. But looking out of the field, there are going to be a lot of competitive battles. I know Brandon Hawkins, 7/10 of a second is his advantage on pole, but there are going to be a lot of really close battles throughout the field looking at this qualifying board. I'm excited to see a lot of them unfold, and we'll have to see. This is not a track where it's very easy to run side by side, so expect these guys to get single file here pretty quickly.
Drivers are all set to go for this one. Keep in mind, it's expected to be a two-stopper on the fuel. 14 to 15 laps of mileage is expected, but tire fall-off could be critical. With fuel full limits, usually the tires do have a massive fall-off around that 15-lap mark for some competitors. But it's one of the best road course racers on the service who brings them to the green flag. It's Brandon Hawkins on the left side, Parker Klugerman on the right side of the racetrack. Green flags out. We're underway for the McConaughey setup shop. Wine Valley 100. And a clean launch for Brandon Hawkins off through turns 1 and 2. Already Scott Hecker the second. Klugerman shuffled back to third. Several cars in trouble in the middle of the corner, though. Columbia and Rambler among your drivers who are stuck in the middle of the grass.
Yeah, there's plenty of them. Rambler is also back here, obviously not very happy. John Garrett was off. Arnold Columbia also ran off the racetrack as a couple of drivers try to scatter through here.
More trouble for Colin Fern. A chaotic first lap already. The 68 from the top 10 already in trouble. Once again, it was clarified for COTA before that race that if there was a track blocking incident, they would throw a yellow flag, or if there's a block for tonight for the pit lane. All cars are rolling, though, on the racetrack. Benjamin Branscombe is also off the racetrack at the back of the field. The front of the field, though, it's already Hawkins leading by more than a second over Scott Hecker.
Well, and Hecker was able to make the move by for second over Parker Klugerman, who's now trying to hold on to third over Will Rogers, who we were talking about. And again, being out front, you get to miss a lot of that as a lot of drivers from about 10th, 15th on back are kind of caught up and having to avoid losing a lot of time, trying to avoid all the chaos here on these first couple laps. We were mentioning this on the pace laps. This is a very difficult racetrack to run side by side. You have a couple of passing opportunities, and really outside of that, you kind of have to sort things out before you get to the corner. Obviously there we see exactly how treacherous it was right off the bat going into turn 1. A couple cars didn't make it.
A little bit crazy to say the very least to start off the rain around the roadies presented by Fort Worth Screen Printing today. But keep in mind, a lot of the drivers getting to a good rhythm. +4 for the controller king, AJ Henderson, among your biggest movers so far. One of the drivers behind them just in trouble, though, Ryan Vargas, who had an adventure at COTA last week, just went off track and he is now back rolling, though. That's turns 3 and 4 as the Flex Steel car goes 3 wide with some of the cars who just were involved in the last crashes.
Oh boy, what a move that was for Ryan Vargas, who already had some front end damage before he ran off track right there. So obviously ran into some issues. One car is up and into the tire barrier nearly off the corner. That was the 13 machine as he nearly pounded the tire barrier that's off here. A lot of hills here at Sonoma, and my goodness, they're going on a little hike today in this field.
Arnold Columbia is also now in trouble in that same section, so the adventures are on, to say the very least. Everyone's trying to ring their way around this racetrack. Keep in mind that before, Sonoma used a bit of a shorter racetrack distance for many years, from the mid-1990s all the way up to a couple years ago, which used essentially a short chute. They added back the carousel to throw back to those days just a couple years ago, Blake. And since then, it does in turn make it a bit difficult for some of the passing, but also add some more danger zones as a result, as we talked about with those massive elevation changes. The drivers, though, it helps, are the ones who are currently trying to run away from the pack.
You're exactly right. Whenever you talk about these elevation changes and other dynamics that you really throw into the picture, it really lends itself to the guys who really have it put together to continue to widen that gap. It widens the skill gap, so to say, for these drivers to have all of these different elements come into play. And that's going to help road course aces like Brandon Hawkins. Obviously, Scott Heckert having a great run right now. Parker Kligerman, who is holding on steady in the third position. All those guys, they're the beneficiaries of having these different conditions and being able to enjoy this different configuration. It plays into their hand more, but it creates more chaos for the guys who, may not be as attuned.
Of note, Matt Wishart had trouble in the carousel again from a bit of a big boop from behind, apparently. Indeed, actually also missed the racetrack, right, as well as Overton, and nearly looped it around. Also, a bit of trouble now for Nicolas Sanchez, apparently on track. Was scored in 7th last time, to the point where he may be having technical issues. Unfortunate for Sanchez, very quick off the jump. Some significant damage, though, already for some of these cars. They already look like they've been at Martinsville rather than at Sonoma.
No, you're exactly right. And avoiding the chaos, that was such a big part of what we were talking about pre-race. But looking at the 13 machine of Jason Samaru, obviously he has some pretty significant damage on his machine. You see that the battles aren't stopping. We were following something there through turn 11, and there's 3-4 cars under a blanket. You have to be able to manage that if you want to see the end of this race. It's a long race, 40 laps here at Sonoma. We're only about 4 or 5 laps in. A lot of drivers are setting themselves up for a very long night tonight if they can't figure things out here early. And of course, it's only going to get worse the more the tires wear, the more heat you build in them. We all know that is not going to play into these tires or cars' favor. Another driver off the track. It's the 17 right in front of Argus.
That was Mistack, Devin Mistack, who's back off and rolling in the 17 machine. Nice looking car, to say the very least. But in all seriousness, once more, this continues to be such a competitive race in series. With Parker Kligerman, he's having his hands full still, though, with Will Rogers. We talked about that experience. Mind you, he is also a very solid sim racer and was expected to be one of the favorites. He was keeping Brandon Hawkins at bay along with Scott Heckert at Coda, where they were near even, and strategies nearly dictated the end of that race before Hawkins adjusted his strategy to counteract the potential time lost on staying on the old tires at the time.
That's another thing. When you start to settle in here, you really start to kind of find out, okay, who's good, who's going to start to flex their muscles here on the long run. We'll start to see that in the next couple of laps, especially. And pretty much from there, you kind of know the range of where you're supposed to be. I think a lot of these guys know that maybe they just don't possess the pace right now outside of an accident happening to maybe run with a Brandon Hawkins or a Scott Heckert right now. But that strategy, of course, is something that kind of in that group that you're in, for Kligerman and Rogers right now. Obviously, they run within a second of each other. Jacob Fisher, Nate Stewart, Brad Perez, you could call them a group together. That within that group, that's where you look to kind of find your strategy, knowing who's around you in time, what they're doing, and obviously how to counteract that. And if you feel like you have a car, maybe being comfortable overshooting it a little bit. As Kligerman is off, and he saved it out at turn 7, but he surrenders position number 2 to Will Rogers.
Wonder if we can get a glance at that, because Parker Kligerman, and I quote, "That was weird." The thing is, he just missed the corner. Parker Kligerman, now P4 as a result. Jacob Fisher, the Aerospace Station Gaming car within reach. And keep in mind that organization, pretty big on sim racing in recent times. It was, of course, for those who tuned in last week, it was talked about especially by Satrix, who knew a ton about this organization and its experience in the air parts of the esports world. Of course, sim racing, it rose up into prominence this year.
It did, and some more trouble to report for Ryan Vargas, who looks like he may have slipped a little bit in front of Roger Gregory here through the S's, and he's going to lose a little bit of time. And also, Matt Wishart kind of took the opposite route here through the S's, as he was off track for quite a while and ended up kind of collecting it back on through the other configuration of this racetrack. So there's so many battles, so many guys slipping and sliding here through these corners.
Yeah, here's one of those specifically once again. That is Wishart trying to hold on with Colin Fern, who is one of the biggest droppers in the field position-wise. Sanchez out of the race officially due to technical issues. The most spots lost outside of that, it is this respective car who you can tell is not liking the right rear tire. This was something drivers talked about in practice that they have been struggling to come to grips with, and keep in mind, this is a tough track in the first place on throttle. When they started off in practice, mind you, it was 117 degrees, so it has been dropping in sim as it is 3:38 p.m. and June 6th. What is supposed to be 2021 for scheduling based on the 2021 Cup calendar. That track temp's actually been dropping since the green flag.
It has been coming down, and again, each degree you may think, well, what's the difference between 105 and 103 that you see right now? Is Matt Wishart, oh boy, is he having a nice little excursion here through the obviously not on the course here at Sonoma. Obviously, you think those little degrees that it goes down doesn't matter, but it makes a huge difference. You can feel it behind the wheel of that race car, how much added grip you have out there, how much cooler it keeps your tires. It may not be something you feel now. Ooh, another big slip from Matt Wishart as he is really struggling with the rear end grip of that race car. And we're only on lap 7. You got to think we're coming to the end of stage 1 here at lap 10. So obviously they'll pay out the points right then. You have it at lap 20, and then obviously the 40 lap markers where we'll end this race. But guys are already starting to slip and slide, and we're not even a quarter of the way through here.
Nate Stewart in trouble in the carousel from the top 10. He is stuck on the other side of the tire barriers. Welcome to Sonoma, everybody.
Oh boy, is that I don't know how. You know, you think of a couple of spots and think, how could a race car end up right there? I don't know how in the world. Nate Stewart, you just think of all the different areas that you could think of and put walls. How does a race car end up in this situation? I don't think anybody imagined that Stewart would be stuck kind of along the tire barrier that he was. We'll take another look at it.
It's something that happens once an official race here at Sonoma with its configuration here for the Cup cars since late 2010s. But because of how the carousel is, if you miss the braking mark or if you bobble loose, you are going to likely slide on the other side of the tires if you carry way too much speed. Guess what? You see with the slow-mo, he went straight and couldn't even lock it up in time.
No, and that's the thing. Once you lose the race car, you almost can't really drive out of it or spin out of it. You just have to hope you get it straight and get it slowed down in time. And unfortunately for Nate Stewart, you think, well, he stopped and he can get it rolling. Unfortunately, he's going to be worse off than just about anybody in this field, because with the position he stopped in, he was stuck in that tire barrier. So he's going to have to unfortunately take the tow back to pit road. So that is going to cost Nate Stewart a ton of time.
Here's a call I don't think we expected. Morning, Ramen. And this is going to be curious because we talked about potential fall off. He was feeling the fall off may outweigh the tires, and apparently he may have gotten significant enough damage to have to come in. You look at that left front.
Yeah, look at it, and you know that's one thing. When we talk about just how much damage these cars can take and how much it affects them, especially in a situation like this. And yeah, it just appeared that it was too much for him to really handle. So he's having to go down, fix it, and wait until his crew can put him back out on the racetrack.
That'll be a third driver off the circuit here, but still about a few laps in the stage, and now it is more trouble for the 16. You see him pull off the track. That was Lee Overton, who was in the back half of the field. The adventures continue, though, for stage points between Kligerman and Fisher. Kligerman being kept at bay by the 84 machine still. They are about 1 second apart at the moment.
And that's one thing typically when you see in these road course races, when you see these passes for about second or third here early on, you typically think that the guy is going to pull away, that Will Rogers really has it figured out. But, Kligerman has done a nice job. We saw him, he locked up the right front tire. It was almost right up here into turn 7 that they'll come up on in just a couple of moments where it really happened. But since then, he hasn't really let Will Rogers escape him necessarily. As we see, hard on the brakes that time. You see, it looks like he's going to get a pretty good exit off that corner, but hasn't let Will Rogers escape. I think that's a good sign for Parker to kind of recover that. But also, of course, Jacob Fisher, he's kind of becoming part of this battle. He's kind of been stalking these top 4 throughout the evening. We'll see if he's able to catch these guys. And Heggard, who started in 3rd and moved up to 2nd, he had a couple issues, so he's trying to run back this kind of pack that's running about 2nd through 5th.
Interesting mark is Heckert, who has scored in 2nd a couple laps ago, has had a significant amount of trouble since then. He lost P2 after having a spin coming out of turn 2 a couple laps ago. Then Kligerman and Fisher since then were also able to pass on by as he was trying to get back on the racetrack. It's not been a good sequence. That lost Heckert 10 total seconds. He is now 3 seconds behind that battle, which is now for P3 with white flag in stage 1.
The white flag in stage 1. I just saw that Henderson had to give up position to Nate Stewart, who's flying through. How about Brad Perez, who's marched up to the 6th position, started back in 9th and has done a good job working his way forward. Even Michael Frisch, we mentioned not taking qualifying, and he has done a stellar job in the National Guard Chevrolet. Started all the way back in 25th. He's already up to 8th. A big slide there. He was able to catch that just in time before he looped it around. But a great job here from Michael Frisch, who you had to imagine going through all the chaos and a lot of these drivers who were struggling. He was able to kind of cut through traffic and do a pretty good job at it and work his way up to the front of the field. So Frisch could be somebody I think could be in contention for a top 5 here soon.
Yeah, he is plus 17. That is a concern for Scott List Rambler, who wanted that Monstock Shop Vibe Checker award. But end of stage 1, green flag and white checkered. Coming across, race will stay green itself, but it's Hawkins in P1 to the stripe. Will Rogers has a good cushion to 2nd, but it has been dropping now down to just 2 seconds for that position, while Kligerman, Fisher, and Heckert are on your top 5. Brad Perez is still another 6 seconds back of that in P6. Frisch, Henderson, Rambler, Prewitt among the drivers, though, who can still shuffle out for various points. They'll close up their laps now. It is Prewitt who ends up with 1 total point to end off the first stage. Now it gets to the fun part, because this is where, if you feel comfortable on this track, you will, especially if you're the drivers in the top 10, have to take a pit stop in this stage with a 50% fuel. The fall off, for some, it's been up to 3 seconds. For some others inside the top 5 and top 10 even, it's been 4 to 5 seconds, depending on the confidence.
And that's just one thing you have to gauge. And, whether these guys, that's the thing with Brandon Hawkins, though, is that he's got such a significant lead. He's 11 seconds ahead and building on that over Will Rogers and the rest of the field, that he can really kind of afford to take it pretty conservative here. Like, obviously, you're not really going to expect a caution to come out, or at least you're not anticipating it. You might, but the odds of that happening are very, very low. But he can run another lap or 2 past where Will Rogers does, and he's not going to lose the race lead. If anything, he'll come out with fresher tires and continue to build on his lead after that. So Hawkins probably in the best position here, but it'll be really interesting to see what happens here, the strategy differences between the rest of the drivers who run in the top 5. It looks like nobody going to head for pit road, though, just yet.
Yeah, they could still go to about 14 to 15 laps. The drivers who are trying alternate strategies, though, are Colin Fern, Devin Mistak, and now Michael Frisch and Scott List Rambler in from 8th and 9th position. This is a little bit earlier than expected, but this may be an interesting but smart call. You talked about their confidence on the road courses, especially since they're fighting for 3 bonus points. That this could be something that gains them even more positions. Once again, that's in reference to the Monstop Shop 5-checker award. Ready to make your look pop? Check out monstopshop.com for unique apparel such as the 5-check collection. Blake.
Well, and you have to think for somebody like Michael Frisch, obviously had to race his way through the field. This is kind of a way for him to try and gain back some of that time and try a little bit of an alternate strategy that doesn't necessarily align with everybody else. So I like what Frisch is doing. He'll be able to gain a little bit of ground here, and you have to think he's probably on pace, worth a couple of spots higher than where he's running right now. So we'll have to see how it pans out. The tires, though, are just, I mean, probably one of the best feelings in the world, I think, Justin, is when you've been on old tires for such a long time. It doesn't matter if it's a road course, doesn't matter if it's an oval. The feeling that you have when you get fresh tires, you're able to do something with it is quite incredible. As we'll see, Will Rogers, Parker Kligerman is going to head on pit road. Jacob Fisher is as well. And this is a tough pit road to get on. You can gain a lot of time if you do it well. It looks like Rogers and Kligerman are able to get through it pretty smoothly.
I believe it was 3 years ago at this racetrack, mind you. At the time, it was the shorter layout, where it was Bobby Zalenski who drifted his way through that entire section. At the same time, though, there have been several cases in races where that section has become completely blocked, with drivers hitting the tires and or getting themselves somehow stuck in the wall. No one's had that trouble yet today. Joining them, by the way, on top of Rogers, Fisher, and Kligerman are Brad Perez, AJ Henderson, Preston Pardis from the top 10.
And that's right now where they currently run. Of course, we'll have to cycle things out here as a couple of drivers will leave pit road. It looks like Jacob Fisher was able to get out off of pit road ahead of Parker Kligerman. So a change up in the top 5. Of course, assuming this cycles out, nobody has any issues, that looks like Kligerman will end up losing a position on pit road to Jacob Fisher. So a nice job there for the Space Station Gaming Machine, who's able to make up some ground. But they still are trying to chase these guys down and have a little bit of traffic to get through on these fresh tires.
Currently, Scott Heckert, who is currently scored in second, but it's 17 seconds behind Brandon Hawkins. So trouble has been afoot for that respective car. Have to see how he recovers. Mind you, the cars behind him are Columbia and Stewart, who are on fresh tires, who are fighting for position. There he goes off into the pit lane. Brandon Hawkins still goes for an additional lap. We'll have the fresh tires among your top 10 competitors potentially here to even have more so build up that lead throughout stage 2 of this race.
Well, and you can look at the time difference that's really going to come up here. Hawkins, 24 seconds ahead of Will Rogers that last time by at the stripe. And we'll probably see that go down pretty significantly here. But I still think that Hawkins will be able to maintain that lead. Or if he loses it, he's going to have such fresh tires if he comes out behind Rogers and Kligerman that, barring any incident, he's really not going to have to worry about all too much here.
Yep, exactly. Right now, the net pit stop time for the drivers who utilize the pit lane the best, 42 seconds. In the case of Kligerman, by the way, he did lose time to Rogers because he was a full second slower on his entry and exit into the lane. Expecting Hawkins this time by the Movado Sim Racing competitor. Also won several road course races in FTF this season as well. Is the point one of the top drivers this season in the Big C's MX-5 Challenge. He's on and in. Him and Eric Prewood have been able to stretch the distance. Roger Gregory expected this time. John Garrett, Jason Samaro, Ricky Paz, along with Benjamin Branscombe, the only other cars who have not yet pit.
Interesting to see how these drivers maintain that position out there, because obviously they're not exactly in a position where they're going to be gaining a lot of time here. If anything, it's the opposite. We hear a call over the radio. Let's see if it's Colin Fern who goes off the racetrack here.
Oh, and it's AJ Henderson who is backwards in the carousel. Apparently said sorry on the radio, as you said, because he spun in front of him.
Well, and that's one of those cases that's so interesting. I actually had it happen earlier in the Ferrari GT3s at the Charlotte Roval that Colin Fern, he's driving up through the carousel, and you just see a mistake in front of you, and because of that, you end up making a mistake. And that's exactly what happened there to Colin Fern. Nothing he could really do. It's just once you see that driver in front of you off, you're not hitting your line. It gets you out of rhythm. It gets you out of shape. You have to try and do something different. Unfortunately, Fern just not able to collect it quite in time. He runs off the track, comes back on, so not too significant a time loss. But that's just one of those things that you see smoke, you see a car out of line, and just for a split moment, it can catch you off guard and cost you a little bit of time. But Fern keeps it together, and if anything, he's still going to gain a spot out of it. He's still able to pass AJ Henderson.
Absolutely. The undercut call, though, did get Frisch and Rambler past Brad Perez on the track by a 1 lap difference on the tires. The tough part for them now is they'll be having 2 lap older tires than the majority of the cars in front of them here. And keep in mind, Brad Perez, lots of road course experience, runs in various different road course events in the real world, is well respected on the sim as well, especially in terms of that regard. He's currently trying to reel in Scott Rambler and Frisch at the moment. Ran a 132.8 last time by all these cars.
Well, let's see what Frisch is able to do. Again, this is a difficult track. Not a whole lot of passing opportunities out here, so it is something where if you have about a lap older tires and you're the car in front, you could still make it pretty difficult on the car behind you to try to make it around. We'll see what Frisch is able to do here with Rambler. This is probably one of your best opportunities to pass is right here into turn 11. You see 57 not quite able to get to the back of Michael Frisch right there. Obviously, Frisch having to get by the slower traffic in there. That is Rahman that is going to be getting out of the way there for Frisch, but we'll see how much longer he's able to hold on there over Rambler. About a tenth is what Rambler made up, but again, you got to be a little bit quicker than that to pass that car in front of you.
You can see there's Perez passing by some of the traffic. Frisch has pulled away from this grouping by about a tenth or two over the past lap. He's now 1 second ahead of these cars. And this may be the one thing that Rambler did not want. I was surprised he didn't qualify. He was second in practice. He was second in the race before. I know there's the thought of trying to outpoint him and sacrifice some of the stage points. There's the problem of, because he was involved in that first lap incident, which is the massive risk you take here at road course racing and these types of events when it comes to iRacing, he's got that front nose damage that's been hampering his car, I think, all race.
It's certainly hampering it right now. We'll continue to ride on. Let's see if he can get through the S's pretty smoothly right here. Again, Frisch just done such a nice job. Raced up to 8th, obviously up to 6th on the strategy. We got a second car who is stuck on the other side of the tires. It's AJ Henderson, who's trying to bob and weave his way out of the tires, and he's going the wrong way. He is getting himself even more stuck. Poor Henderson. That's exactly where we saw earlier that old Nate Stewart was perched up on earlier, that exact same tire barrier. And you could just see he's trying to fight the elevation right here. And I don't even think he's going to be able to get off of the tire barrier right here if he wanted to. And there's really no way you could spin that car, go in reverse. There's really nothing you can do at this point. But, he's going to try valiantly because, there it goes. All right, he's able to get out of that barrier. And again, you may think about what that could do to the car. Obviously, he doesn't need to blow it up because his RPMs have been very high. But this is a time gain overtaking that toe that we saw Nate Stewart do earlier. So nice job there by AJ. Obviously not a situation you want to be in, but he does a nice job at least trying to get out of it.
Oh, that was Frisch who nearly hit him coming off the racetrack. Henderson is still waiting for race control to help him get on the track. That could have been disastrous if that was a little bit more to the right for the battle for 6.
And again, it was one of those things, I think Frisch just sees somebody off the racetrack and slightly makes a mistake because of it. A great job collecting it and saving it, but obviously all that strategy we talked about, holding off the cars behind him, that's long gone. But man, what a nice job there by Frisch to get off the track and still not manage to spin it out. We've seen a couple of cars go off right there, and not many have been able to manage it that well.
Change for P4, Scott Heckert was able to make the move. And he's got real-world experience. We talked about Blake, and that's extremely valuable. He was really competitive at both the Daytona Road Course as well as believe it was Road America. He made that experience and start at for this season in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Yes. He's currently trying to reel in Parker Kligerman in all this once more here, Blake.
He is, and he's trying valiantly again. Newer tires, and even that last time by, it was a little over a second is what Heckert was able to make up there on Parker. And let's see what he's able to do here. This is where we saw a couple of issues earlier, and again, just such an interesting turn here at this racetrack, having to go up, and you can overrun it a little bit and still get a really nice exit off and build up some speed for the S's. Looks like Heckert's still able to make up some time, and you know, you can even see how big of a difference the tires makes. You can see somebody who has a bad corner or has a good corner. You can see Heckert, maybe he's not driving quite as well as Kligerman, but the tires just make such a huge difference here that even a lap or two can really sway things. You see how much harder Heckert can get onto the brakes there, catches Kligerman a little bit, not as much of a slide off the corner. It's all those little things that add up to the amount of time you're able to gain.
To go in stage 2. This time by for these competitors, by the way, it's a 14, make it near 15-second lead for Hawkins over Rogers, Kligerman, and Heckert at the moment. Keep in mind that with Heckert and Kligerman gaining some time and ground on Rogers with his undercut by about half a second to a full second a lap, there's a chance it becomes a 3-car scrap per second in this race. And especially, though, Heckert nearly took it to the inside of Kligerman. Kligerman with the defense into the carousel.
Well, and Kligerman, he's starting to slide the rear end of that race car. You can see through the carousel, he is doing everything he can to catch it, and Heckert gonna try to pounce here. He's gonna look to the inside, and I think Parker can't really do much and try to handle him. He's just gonna let Heckert get on by, hope he overruns this corner, but it doesn't look like the 34 is gonna do so. So a very solid job there from Heckert, who, again, with the differing strategy, we weren't sure, was Kligerman gonna be able to hang on here to the end of stage 2 and hang on to those points? It appears that the answer for that is no, but of course right behind them, Jacob Fisher, he becomes part of this battle as well. Can he try and catch Kligerman?
It's still 6 seconds back is the main key, though, for Fisher compared to Kligerman in his number 84 machine. Ramore, for reference sake, has dropped to 6, about 10 seconds back of all this. Brad Perez currently still 1.2 seconds back. Michael Frisch about 4 seconds back of all of that. White flag for stage 2 on the racetrack. 16 cars are currently, check that, 13 on the lead lap at the moment.
And you can imagine only...
Pardon me there. Apparently that we had a car run out of gas. We were hearing from race control, by the way. Jason Samaro, who got off the racing surface in time, though, before an incident could take place.
I gotta say, running out of fuel here, that is not something I expected, especially when you think you had to at least come down pit road here once to make it this far. Perhaps this is about as long as you could go on the limited tank that they do have. So interesting to hear. I didn't think fuel mileage was going to be something that we would talk much about, at least this early on in the race.
He somehow made it about 16.9 laps, if I'm looking correctly. That is about 1 or 2, nearly 2 laps longer than the estimate. I'm surprised he tried to stretch it. Do you think he may have not realized, oh, hey, we have 50% fuel. It's not like, say, an official race where you can stretch it to, say, about 23 to 26 or so. As here we go, the end of stage 2. Brendan Hawkins, 16.9 seconds ahead. Wins stage 2, 10 more points to his total on the campaign. Will Rogers hold on to second. Scott Heckert and Parker Kligerman among your top 4 cars, all bunched together about 3 seconds apart from one another. They'll score 9 to 7 points from P2 down to P4 with Jacob Fisher 5th, Ramore coming home in 6th. Brad Perez will hold on to 7th, while Michael Frisch will get himself some more stage points in 8th. Rounding out the top 10, Colin Fern was able to recover to P9, and he's elected to pit at the end of the stage instead. He does have a buffer. I don't think he realizes that Preston Pardis may steal points from him because he is behind Eric Prewitt by about a couple car lengths. Yes, indeed. Colin Fern trying to get to the stripe for the points. No, he'll lose a stage point or two.
Oh, and it was one of those things that his pit stall was just beyond the start-finish line. I remember even a league, I've done that myself, where you basically, especially without a caution, this is how you could win a stage. You could win it on pit road. I've done that myself, but unfortunately for Colin Fern, he timed it out, and I mean, he was just about a second too far back, and that's going to cost him 2 points. And of course, he'll get the tires here early on to make up some time, but unfortunately, doesn't get the points to go along with that. I love the valiant effort, though. It's a nice little strategy play right there. You know, talk about Burton Kligerman. I remember I actually went to the All-Star race where Jeff Burton kind of did that, where he finished a stage on pit road.
Yeah, that was one of the smartest crew calls in the history of the All-Star race, to say the very least. But we'll take you side by side. You're watching SDN Racing for coverage of the Ring Around the Roadies. It's round 2 of this series presented by Fort Worth Screen Printing. It's the McConey Setup Shop, Wine Valley 100, live from Sonoma. Back live as Brandon Hawkins currently still leads by 18.6 seconds over Will Rogers, Scott Heckert, Parker Kligerman, and Jacob Fisher in the McConey Setup Shop Wine Valley 100. Justin Prince alongside Blake McCandless with, once again, Zach Johnson in the director's seat here for today's action. Take a look at your field summary so far. No lead changes. It's been all Brandon Hawkins all day so far, to the point where he's about to lap P13, Matt Wisher, right in front of him.
And that's really the only thing that Brandon Hawkins has to worry about here. The pace that he's carried through this race has just been ridiculous throughout the entire night. And you know, sometimes you just load up to these road courses and you're just so strong that you don't have to worry too much about anything right now, that you can even back off, maybe run about 80% where you think you're capable of. With the pace he's carried, again, it's going to be mistakes, it's going to be getting through lap traffic that's going to get him a win. Otherwise, if you're Will Rogers, Scott Heckert, Parker Kligerman, there's a lot more going on here. There's a lot of congestion here in the carousel right around this battle for second.
Yeah, by the way, that car that's running slow right now just had to get back going in the middle of the carousel, as well as a couple others that's passed. We haven't talked too much about who is also streaming his perspective personally, but 2 laps down, one of the drivers who put in a ton of preparation for this respective race currently scored 18th, 2 laps down.
18th, 2 laps down, and this is just going to be part of the race. And obviously a lot of these cars that are a lap down, lots of damage, lots of guys on differing strategies. This is one of the difficult parts about some of this lap traffic, Justin, is that sometimes you approach it, you don't know exactly where they're at. Obviously, if they recently
just Eric Prewitt, he has now beached the 59 nearly. And this, thankfully, has some space, but the leader is there and nearly comes out back in front of him.
And see, this is what we were talking about. Brandon has to know that he has a huge lead. He can afford to lose some time to kind of avoid these incidents if need be. But also, the one thing about lap traffic here, Justin, is not only do you have to worry about obviously passing it, but sometimes you get all these crazy strategies, guys who maybe just ran off, took toes, got tires. That there's even some occasions where, if they're on fresh tires, they're faster than the leaders in some instances. You always just have to be aware. You're obviously very aware of the damage they have on the race car. You just have to be very mindful of getting around this traffic, especially at a track where you really have to pick and choose your spots to pass wisely.
Speaking of trying to find something to use wisely, you can see the grouping of Rogers, Heckert, and Klugerman all bunched up together looking to scrap. Keep in mind, take a quick glance at your upcoming races. Of course, right around the Roadies goes next week to Road America. We talked about the experience for this respective driver there. His first experience in 2020 came there. That takes place November the 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch that once more here on SDN Racing. Then on Podium Esports, the second round of the Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge takes place at Eldora Speedway. That's on Monday, November 23rd at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, once again at Eldora Speedway. Then the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series is back on the racetrack on November the 24th for the qualifiers for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Can Blake Ray build up on his momentum for the win last week at Daytona? We'll see. That's on November 24th, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. A podium and podium 2. Some great races, and some of these competitors, mind you, have competed in just about a whole combination of those races, especially since there was the interesting event that was for Grid Ultimate Driver Challenge that brought out a lot of big names, including some of them tonight.
It really did. You see a lot of these names in a lot of these competitive leagues that they run. And I mean, even talking about the Pro Series, we've seen a couple drivers in this field that have at one time or another called themselves Pro Series drivers. I know I was doing some show prep for the Pro Series broadcast last night, and lo and behold, I see somewhere in the 2010 standings Parker Kligerman, who was on that Pro Series standings list at one point or another. And, obviously a lot of guys up here. Brandon Hawkins, I think if he hasn't gone for it yet, he could very certainly, whether it's on the oval or the road course side, obviously showcase that he's very capable of being one of those drivers that can call themselves a pro in any of the multiple disciplines of iRacing. You just have to put the time into it. But yeah, it's curious to see the guys who are able to go for it. I know Michael Frisch was competing for Road to Pro early on last season. A lot of really strong names out here. And it's nice to see kind of the different disciplines. And even an announcement today, Justin, that I thought was really interesting, that iRacing is going to move to a kind of different safety license and iRating system instead of just separating it by classes, and it's going to be separated by track type for a little bit. That iRatings are going to be more based off the track type. If it's a road course in an oval series, it's going to use your road iRating and not necessarily what we've seen in the past. It's a big change.
That is a massive change, actually, because that was one of the things where you would have, say, oval drivers who had road course experience build up their licenses on the oval tracks, like, say, the Brickyard, or tracks like, say, Auto Club for open wheel races, and then vice versa, where you'd have a lot of the drivers build up their oval licenses when they go road course racing. Keep in mind that, yes, there is an increase of road course races next year for the NASCAR Cup Series, which includes all these scheduled tracks essentially for this series. But it was something on the iRacing service that was something that popped up.
It was, and the one thing that I think is going to be interesting in the qualifiers for those series, if they are going to be utilizing track type iRatings, and you think about all you need to do to kind of build up for these guys that'll run on the oval side, particularly for the Road to Pro series. Obviously, we know how important iRating is for that. Are you going to have to build up your road iRating to compete in the road races for that series? That's going to be something that I think is a fascinating topic of discussion here in the next couple of weeks. Scott Heckert right now, he was in third. He's on to pit road. It looks like Michael Frisch has made his way on to pit road as well. Parker Kligerman also to the service of his crew.
So they're in for their scheduled final stops of the race. They can make it to the end from here. Again, it was 14 laps. That was the top of the fuel tank towards that mark, give or take. Frisch and Kligerman among the drivers off and away. Kligerman having to try and keep up with Scott Heckert, who was able to come out of the lane first. Of note, we've seen Scott Lestrammer a few moments ago try and fight at that time with Frisch. There was trouble that cost Ramler a position to Brad Perez. That was because Ricky Paz had trouble in front of him. They had an apology over the radio a few laps ago. The leader is also now in with 13 to go. He only went 13 laps this time.
Well, that's another benefit for Brandon is now that the stages are over, he's gotten his points. At this point, he's not really served well by staying out on those old tires. He can just do whatever he feels like doing, which is having a lot of grip. Again, he's going to have a massive lead whether he stayed out or whether he came in. But I think this is just kind of a conservative approach here for Brandon, who I think it just simply put, he wants grip out there. He doesn't want to have to run a long strategy and perhaps risk making a mistake sliding around on old tires. I think he just wants to keep 4 fresh tires on it, and he'll move forward and be comfortable here for the remaining 12 or 13 laps or so to get to the end.
On top of that, the Space Station gaming cars are on that exact same lap having a pit since they were at the end of their respective window. Rogers, Fisher, Brad Perez, Scott Lestrammer among the drivers now in the lane. So that's also the counterpoint which was seen for last round with Heckert and Hawkins, where Heckert undercut him every single time in the first 2 stages for pit stops by about 2-3 laps. Guess who came out of the race lead for a good lap and a half? Scott Heckert. And if there was any mistakes, Brandon Hawkins would not be able to pass for a couple laps. He didn't take any chances then, and that's exactly the window he hasn't had to concern about so far today, to say the least. He's coming up to 12 to go with this time by.
Coming up to 12 to go, you see him running kind of behind that traffic right there in front of him. Kligerman was able to jump him off of pit road, but don't imagine it's going to be too difficult.
Scott Lestrammer among the drivers who just got held up in turn 2. Michael Frisch, as well as I believe Stewart, had contact. It was Frisch on fresh tires who doored Ramler off the track. They went sliding, and Stewart also nearly ran over Frisch in that. Tempers flaring on the radio. They were fighting for position prior to the difference in strategy there.
Well, and this is something that is really interesting, the speed difference coming off of pit road. Obviously, Ramler coming off of pit road, there's not a whole lot of exit kind of time right here, and Frisch is actually going to move over and give Ramler the position. I think that was more of a courtesy or so, knowing that Ramler is on fresher tires. And again, Frisch just didn't see him coming off of pit road is what he said over the radio. And how tight you have to be. You're going uphill. You're having to slow down. There's a lot of factors right there, and obviously Frisch and Ramler got together going uphill in what's a very, very tight pit road exit here.
It was a tough sequence, to say the very least. And keep in mind, it was about 5 to 10 car lengths back at the start of the corner that Frisch was carrying the momentum forward. We'll take a look on the STN replay specifically to talk exactly that. And you hit upon that difficulty with the pit lane. The counterpoint also, though, is Ramler's already arcing the corner by the time that you expect Frisch to hit the pits. You see right here, coming out of the lane, it was more so 5. Right there, just jumps for the hole.
Well, he jumps for it, and again, I just don't think he knew. I think he anticipated Ramler to kind of run high a little bit there. He wasn't expecting him to cut down or anything like that. But, you know, they sorted it out. Obviously, Ramler runs off the track. Frisch surrenders the spot back. Obviously, Ramler on the fresher tires has the advantage there. We'll see Frisch here as they work through the carousel. Looks to be in a good position to make up some ground on Colin Fern, who's on a little bit older tires than Michael Frisch. So I'm not going to change things up too drastically here. Looks like going into turn 7, looks like Frisch is going to have the advantage here. He's going to send Fern out wide, and 68 is just going to surrender that position.
Yep, that Coastal Carolina University sponsor machine way up the track. Also of note, Parker Kligerman currently comfortably in P4 after everything, lost another second, or half a second at least, in the pit lane to Will Rogers. So Kligerman has a 7-second buffer to that position, would be his best run so far. This time by, there was the quickest lap of the race, though, set by Brandon Hawkins, which puts him in the driver's seat for $5 and 3 bonus points. With the Overton Speed Shop Fastest Lap Award, Speed Shop is a team which credits official and creates official and custom setups from a Cody setup shop. Keep in mind that we are hearing reports that Kligerman was in the top 3 entering the lap. He did lose 8 seconds that previous time by.
And that was actually because of an incident that occurred in turn 7. We once again saw Kligerman have the same issue that he ran into entering turn 7, locks up the right front, and looked like obviously Kligerman ran so wide that Rogers wasn't expecting him to come back and really kind of cut down the corner. He ends up cutting off Rogers, who was there at the bottom. And man, that's just one of those things, Justin. I don't really know if you can blame either driver. Obviously, Kligerman overran the corner. He's just trying to get a run off. I don't think he sees that Rogers is coming. And honestly, to be frank with you, I don't think Rogers even sees Kligerman out of his windshield. He can maybe barely see him, but I just don't think he anticipated him to cut down that much. So he was just taking a regular entrance, and somehow they get together.
Yeah, that time you see the hobble on the replay. Right there, as soon as he came back to the racing line, Rogers was already in the line. So Kligerman, that's where he lost those 8 seconds. It's still a top 5 run regardless. Also, this is Branscombe, who is now in trouble towards the side of the racetrack. That was also in that sequence. During that replay sequence, he also had trouble in that same section.
Well, and the one thing here is, Justin, we're kind of strung out so much that even though Parker goes for a spin right there, that's not really going to cost him any time. He still has about a 5-second lead over Jacob Fisher. Now, obviously, the tires aren't going to be too happy with him, I'm sure, but for the most part, Rogers is going to go on by. I think maybe it could cost him a third position, depending on how Scott Heckert is able to hang on with his older set of tires. But for the most part, other than just heating up the rear tires, I don't think it's going to be something that costs Parker too many spots here.
132 flat last time by for Rogers. Here's the thing, though, when it comes to that Ramler and Frisch battle. That contact, that was significant in that whole entire 3-lap sequence for Ramler, from the trouble with the 54 to the spin around to where he is now. That may have cost him 3 points to try and keep up with the championship fight early on in this season with Hawkins. There is a drop week available for the first 5 weeks of the season. But at this mark, I think this is not the type of race Scott wanted. On the bright side, at least, Michael Frisch went off into the sand, so there goes the pressure for now.
Yeah, that obviously is nice to not have to worry about some competition directly behind you. And it's been interesting to see these two drivers kind of either making mistakes. They're obviously, Ramler has the advantage on the tires, but they haven't really been able to separate themselves all too much from one another.
Well, that's the thing. They're near consistent. We've talked about the experience for some of the drivers, such as Heckert. He runs a lot of road course races, ran in some GT races in his up-and-coming days in his racing career, mind you, as well. We've talked about Ramler, known for being quick in anything you put him in on a road course or on an oval. And, of course, it's been interesting, to say the very least. So, the question is, though, at the same time, eventually, you have to think P2 is going to get interesting of note. Because we looked at Heckert a moment ago. Ramler's pulling off in a way, needs to somehow close up 6 seconds. But for Heckert, he is getting reeled in by Rogers. He's only about 1.6 seconds back. That's the 55 right there.
Well, let's see what it was that last time by. Heckert, a 33.9, and for Will Rogers, also a 33.9. So not a ton of ground made up for Rogers. It was about 4/100ths of a second, but he has 8 laps to do it in, and Rogers has the benefit of being on fresher tires. So we'll have to see what ground he's able to make up. But I think you're right. This battle for second could get pretty interesting here in just a little bit.
100% on that one. By the way, you see the different sponsorships there. That is in reference to a new collection on that side of things for Space Station Gaming on that race car. Bit different look for the 55 this week. And mind you, remember, he was very impressive back in eNASCAR Saturday Night Thunder. He was a top 10 contender in just about every single race.
He was, and you see the consistency really come out there. Many different combinations right there, and he was still able to get it done. Working through the S's right here. See what he's able to do. Again, another big opportunity here to make up some time. Looks like the 34 gets off a little high into turn 11. Rogers able to get closer to the bottom. Doesn't look like, though, just by the eye test, doesn't look like Heckert lost, or it didn't look like Rogers was able to make up a ton of time. And actually, yeah, they're about dead even. 4 1/1000ths of a second separated them. So Heckert doing a nice job here maintaining this gap.
And that's the thing. Last week at Coda, they were dead even on the short run. Heckert, though, was able to be stronger on the long run and gained about a second or two from Rogers, and then was able to keep that buffer for every pit stop and so forth and so on. Just seems the constant path on forward. Klugerman, though, remember that cushion we talked about? It's gone. Jacob Fisher is about to say hello to him to try and make it a 3-4 for Space Station Gaming.
He's going to try to do that. We know that Kligerman lost a lot of time there through that spin, and this may be the real consequence of it, is Fisher reeling him in just a little bit. That last time it was 0.8 of a second that Fisher made up on Kligerman, so we'll have to see how much he can hang on here. I don't think there's a lot that the Food Country USA Toyota is going to be able to do to try and hold off Fisher. We know it's hard to pass here. They got a little bit of lap traffic in front of them. Parker may have to rely on that to try and give him a little bit of a buffer. Oh, Fisher slipping here through the S's. That's not going to help his cause, but it looks like for a moment there, Fisher in a really good position to reel in Kligerman, but Fisher just did a number on the rear tires through the S's.
He does have the fresher tires. That's the thing, though. You see how much more confident he is on the brakes. And he's kind of an under-the-radar driver on the iRacing service. He is a part of this organization, yes, but here's the thing. He's come up at times in some events here and there over the years where he has been lightning quick. Since joining this organization, and especially in the second half of this year, he's become more and more prominent. Keep in mind, he was the VSCRA champion earlier this year.
Certainly so, and that's the one thing about sim racing is a lot of these guys that stick around for a long time. The one thing that's always awesome to see is when guys make noticeable strides, and Fisher obviously coming into his own right here, improving and proving time and time again that you can get better. There are things you can learn to help your strategy. I know everybody just thinks, well, Brandon Hawkins, he's ahead by 27 seconds right now. He's just always been that good. And I think you and I both know it, Justin, being around sim racing or even real life racing, I think anybody can say that in any discipline that it's just not the case that you just show up and you're all of a sudden great at what you do. It takes time, it takes discipline, it takes practice. It takes all those things, learning little nuances, being consistent with it. All of those things really add up to kind of make you the sim racer that you are, and it's just always a learning process. I think that a lot of guys they continually get better. The guys in the Coca-Cola series, for example, they'll be better drivers next year than they are this year, but everybody's always learning, always improving, and so it's where you can make those gains over everybody else, where you find the guys that are really able to make things happen and get things done.
For comparison's sake, 37 career oval sanctioned victories, 4 career road victories in his career. In regards to Ramor and Frisch, they are still tight. The problem is, in regards to Ramor and his point hopes, he has not closed in at all, if not lost time to Brad Perez. And now he's back in the hands of Stewart and several lap cars. We've seen how difficult the traffic has been. Some of the cars have been having spins in front of respective cars, especially in Sector 2 today.
They have, and that's really bunched things up right here, right in front of Rambler, as he's going to get into the back of Nate Stewart and turns him right as they were getting into the corner. As Rambler just said, hey, lap car, I'm not going to wait on you. He punched Stewart out of the way. Frisch actually got the worst end of that. He slid a little bit trying to avoid Stewart, so that'll cost him about a second or so.
Side-by-side P4 as well, though. They're door banging in the S's right now. Fisher and Kligerman. See Fisher right on by. They went back and forth and doored each other going into Sector 3. That was after Fisher was able to go to the inside after Kligerman again locked up the right front tire. The second time he's done this stint. It was exactly what happened with Rogers made the pass. This time, though, Fisher waited an extra corner to complete the move.
I got to tell you what, though, side by side through the S's here at Sonoma, you are just asking for trouble. So the fact that they just traded some paint is pretty good considering what the outcomes could have been. I think you see a lot of guys go side by side in the S's here at Sonoma. They often don't make it out on the other side. So Fisher, a brilliant job to make the move. And also, you got to rely on the guy you're passing to be aware of the situation. So Parker, a nice job kind of being aware of everything and giving space, but also staying on the racetrack. That is such a difficult place to make a pass, and Fisher was able to do it, so he moves up into P4.
Kligerman looks like he might be able to hold on if there isn't any mistakes, and especially with some of the traffic to that spot he's in for a top 5 run. He is 12 seconds ahead of P6. The traffic is thick is the problem. 3 to go this time by for the race leaders. Right there, that's Prewitt, leaving some space. He is 12th position on the racetrack. Want to give a quick shout out, though, to Branscombe, where we talked about him streaming on the University of Kentucky's personal Twitch feed. He has been having an adventurous race. He's the last car running. Have to give him credit for still running, but still, how is that car still running?
Yeah, I was about to say, just you gotta be able to just power through. And again, you learn in these moments right here when your car's struggling, everything's going wrong. You know, this is when you can become a bit of a better sim racer. Obviously, Branscombe, he's the only driver. He's got Benjamin Fanning directly in front of him on his lap. But you think there's not a lot to fight out here for the 38. Just being able to get this to the end mentally, and obviously being able to have experience running at the end obviously will help a lot, as it sounds like somebody may have been off the track. No, it looks like Arnold Columbia spun right in front of Colin Fern. What a miss there for the 68.
Yeah, and he nearly got ran over as well from Brandon Hawkins. Hawkins was able to just dodge it. So that could have been disastrous. Was about to say, if anything was to happen with this traffic, Brandon Hawkins will not be a happy camper with a 25-second advantage on the racetrack.
No, I don't think he's going to be. Well, I mean, obviously he's happy. He still has such a huge lead. Not going to lose a whole lot of ground here. Runs a couple of seconds off pace, but again, Hawkins just in just an amazing position here to just kind of run away. Branscombe, oh boy, he is just trying to get to the end here.
Yeah. By the way, just checked in on the Twitch side. 250 people are watching him on board spin around this racetrack. I guess they've been having a show. Some people like entertainment. Colin Fern in trouble in the carousel for P10, nearly loops it.
Oh, and he got the right rear off the track, and you don't often see people save it when that is the lone tire that's off, and he does a nice job collecting up that race car. Nice job for him. A development, though, for second, though, we were anticipating that Will Rogers was going to be able to give Scott Heckert a run for his money. That has not happened. Heckert has done a nice job. Again, he shortcut Will Rogers right there and still has been able to build a substantial gap, about 5 seconds over Rogers, who we thought was going to be able to go up there and challenge for second. So a nice job here for the 34, being able to fend off the challenge from Will Rogers for second.
Well, we talked about that long run. It's coming into play. Final few laps of this race. Brandon Hawkins coming to the white flag, this time by from the McConaughey Setup Shop Wine Valley 100. And man, has this race flown by, especially if you're Brandon Hawkins. Has a 25-second cushion with the rest of the field. He looks to close it out on the final lap from Sonoma Raceway.
Hawkins just has really one more car to get around that he has to worry about. It is Colin Fern, who runs in the 10th position, but otherwise Hawkins in a good position. He can even afford to just let Fern have this position right here. He just doesn't need the 68 to step out anything. He's got a monument, 25-second lead over Scott Heckert. For reference's sake, Heckert's in turn 1 right now, just getting out of turn 2. So Hawkins easily in control. He can afford to just cruise along and get to the flag at this point.
And here's the thing with Colin Fern. He's also a sim racing veteran on top of his experience known with Brandon Motorsports. Currently a big part of the organization on the technical side. Did social media for them. He's been a long-time sim racer since especially the mid-2010s. Used to run NIS every single week. It was a daily fixture in some of the mid-splits. He's being smart on this, to say the least.
Yeah, again, no reason to push it here. Going into turn 11, just bring her on home.
For the final hairpin. For Brandon Hawkins, it's talked about he could be difficult to beat. Well, he's conquered them all for the second straight week. He sweeps the stages and secures the win in the ring around the Roadies. He wins the McConaughey Setup Shop Wine Valley 100.
And what a dominating performance here. From qualifying on, we knew who the fastest car was, and Brandon Hawkins doesn't make a mistake. He goes out and he executes it. Second, though, going to go to Scott Heckert. He's in control of that second position, and he does a nice job, again, holding off Will Rogers for what was a pretty interesting battle. Change for third, though. Jacob Fisher makes it by Rogers, and Parker Kligerman going to try for another position as well, as Will Rogers ran into some issues. It looks like third is going to go to Jacob Fisher. Fourth will go to Parker Kligerman as they both get up one spot. We'll have to see exactly what happened to Will Rogers here on the last lap, and I believe he just took an excursion. Yeah, he blew turn 7.
Still some drivers fighting for some positions, but this is going to be a crucial one because Rogers, top 3 in the championship scrap coming into tonight. The main key part, though, is remember turn 7? And some of the troubles he had there before that lost him some time. I think that may have been where he lost those spots.
And you can see it right here. It's not on entry, it's on exit. You could see he could feel the car slipping, and he just does kind of the overcorrect to get the car out of the way. But because of the traffic coming by, he was not able to get going for a couple of seconds, so may have been able to hold on as well. But again, with just lap traffic coming on behind him, he just has nowhere to go. So unfortunate for him, but obviously Fisher and Kligerman able to move forward for 3 and 4.
Just about the whole field is finished as Brandon Hawkins celebrating the only driver yet to finish. Guess who? Colin Fern, who is finishing backwards.
Well,
welcome to Ricky Bobby Land.
Yeah, got to give him style points on that one. If you're gonna, he knew he couldn't gain a position, so you might as well go out in style.
Once again, it's Brandon Hawkins with the race win today from Sonoma Raceway. And also secures not only the Fort Worth Screen Printing Pool Award, it's your Overton Speed Shop Fastest Lap Award winner. So 6 more additional points on top of everything today for a dominant performance. Let's take a look towards your unofficial race results for tonight's action. The McConaughey Setup Shop Wine Valley 100 went the direction of Brandon Hawkins. Led the entire way, essentially, all day by 26 seconds. Just about was the distance over Scott Heckert this time. After a mistake from Will Rogers, his teammate Jacob Fisher takes P3, while Parker Kligerman recovers from a poor performance at Coda to a top 5 at Sonoma. Rogers recovers to 5th, while Ramler and Frisch finish 6th and 7th. Here's the key part. The Mon Stop Shop Vibe Checker Award in turn goes to Michael Frisch with a plus 18 on the race, Rambo only a plus 17. Brad Perez finished in P8 after a mistake in the late going, while Preston Pardus and Colin Furr round out your top 10, Blake.
And the rest of these drivers a lap down. Jacob Armstrong finishes 1 lap down in 11th. 12th goes to Eric Pewitt. Finishing in 13th was Matt Wishart. And 14th after spinning there late was Nate Stewart. Again, all the rest of these drivers, multiple laps down. Arnold Columbia was 2 down in 15th. 16th goes to Devin Mistak. 17th goes to Manan Rahman. 18th to Ricky Paz. 19th to John Garrett. 20th was Jarrett Mackey.
21st goes to Benjamin Branscombe today. 5 laps down, rather. He was able to pass Benjamin Fanning in the closing stages to not finish the last car running. The rest of the field, however, did not make it to the checkered. Jason Samaro finished 18 laps down after his field troubles. Roger Gregory, 24th. AJ Henderson, after being one of the first drivers I've ever seen be able to get unstuck from the tires in the carousel, finished in 25th. 25 laps down. Ryan Vargas did not have a good night, 26th, while Overton and Sanchez rounded out your entrants for tonight's action. Lots of happy drivers, especially if you're in the camp of Brandon Hawkins. Once more, the Delano Sim Racing driver torches the field. Brandon, you did it again. You made it look easy.
Well, thanks, Justin. Yeah, it definitely wasn't, dude. Yeah, this such a stupid hard car to drive, but yeah, just really happy to start with a good starting position and able to bring it back in one piece. So yeah, I'm happy about that.
Of course, you were consistent and quick the whole race. You ran away by a second in the first lap alone. How difficult was it to try and nail this track, as you mentioned, with the tough car compared to, say, some drag cars like the MX-5 or some of the other cars you may run for your road teams?
Yeah, the stock cars are a completely different animal from pretty much anything on iRacing. So, yeah, you really have. I don't know. Like it's got to be harder, like on here than it is in real life. But but yeah, it's just like a knife edge. You know, it's you have to. Like you can only turn the wheel like a few degrees, and if you get it on the gas just a little bit too hard, it's all over. So yeah, it's just really hard to get around the track, and but just keeping it like slow and steady seems to be the way to go.
You definitely seem very consistent, to say the very least, in these stock cars. You showed it on your oval speed as well, mind you, in some of the series this year on STN Racing and Podium Esports. But next race, couple weeks from now, ends up seeing the series make its way once more to more action. Road America specifically is the next one on the calendar. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Road America should be a really good race as well. It's like a great fast track, lots of elevation changes. It's a little bit less technical than Sonoma, so yeah, it should be a little bit more tolerable to drive. But yeah, you know, it's gonna be a really great race. I'm like, it's great race in here. Everybody involved. It's been a good time so far.
Anyone you want to thank for dominating the field once more?
Well, I'd just like to thank you know, like all my fellow competitors. It's been like they're really great guys. A lot of really big names in here too, and that's pretty neat. And yeah, I just like to thank Fort Worth Screen Printing for sponsoring the series, and everybody involved in making this thing happen. It's a really fun series to drive in, and yeah, stock cars on road courses, like they're so much fun to drive. So yeah, just really great time. Looking forward to next week.
Congratulations on the run today.
Thanks, guys.
Brandon Hawkins torched the field by more than 25 seconds for the race victory. Getting the chance to meet Scott Heckard and talk about his second place run is Blake McCandless.
And Scott, what a drive that was for you. Obviously, a big gap that you ended up building over third and fourth behind you. A lot of chaos going out there. We just talked with Brandon. We know, and even we're listening to practice, how difficult this racetrack is. How difficult was it from your perspective to keep the wheels on it for 40 laps?
It was really tough out there. To be honest, I was hanging with Brandon. I felt like I could keep it under 5 or 6 seconds. Then maybe I might try some pit strategy like I was doing at Coda, and it might be a little more successful here just because it was a little harder to pass. But then I kind of, messed up a little bit there coming out of 2 or 3, and it's just so delicate. I didn't feel like I did anything different, but I did a little half spin and pretty much was out of the race for the win at that point, just trying to salvage second.
Yeah, I'm sure it is difficult to try to just get everything you can, but obviously you come home with a second place finish tonight. Was this kind of what you were expecting coming into tonight, that you were going to finish up here on the podium?
I didn't really know what to expect because I didn't do as much practice this week. I pretty much only had a couple laps last night, and then about half an hour today in the practice session. So it was tough out there. I mean, I think it was just about being really consistent, and I felt like even if I didn't have the 1 lap pace, that I could just kind of lap by lap, kind of knock away at some of the other guys.
All right, Scott. Well, you do a nice job bringing it home second. Now you probably got a couple partners on that car to thank. Mike's all yours.
Oh yeah, I mean it's been a long time since I've done this kind of thing, but just happy that this league's set up, and appreciate you guys coming on board. It's been really cool to be a part of. So just shout out to you guys for doing an awesome job. Thank you.
All right. Well, that is Scott Heckert, an impressive effort. 15 seconds is the margin over third. Obviously, comes home second on the podium. We'll throw it down to Justin Prince, who's caught up with our third place finisher. That will be Jacob Fisher.
Yes, indeed. And it was a crazy final lap. Jacob, first things first, how are you feeling about this race as you come home with a top 3 run for Space Station Gaming in what was an eventful race for you?
I mean, I'm kind of surprised, if I'm being honest with you. I was pretty content with finishing 4th. And then Will spun, I guess. I don't know exactly what happened. And just right place, right time, I guess, to take away a 3rd place finish.
We've talked about some of the difficulties with this racetrack. Drivers mentioned, of course, it can be difficult to drive these road course tracks in a stock car. But for you, what was it kind of like today to try and battle for position, to try and make sure you got through the traffic correctly and cleanly around the circuit?
It was really tough. I mean, the biggest thing is just keeping the rear tires hooked up. With V7 tire model that they have now, it's already hard to do that. And now with the low down force on these cars at road courses, it makes it even more of a challenge. So just trying to make sure you catch lap traffic in the right spots, in a good spot to get around them. There were a couple times where I caught people like right on the apex of, or right at the exit point of me where I'd meet a straightaway, and that kind of hurt me. I lost a bunch of time, and then there was another time where I went off and I lost a bunch of time there too. But it's just mainly minimizing mistakes. I made a couple, and that's what put me so far behind. 2nd, 3rd, 4th. I was kind of up there with them before my little off-track excursion. But yeah, just minimizing mistakes and just trying to be as efficient as you can around traffic, and that's pretty much all you can do.
I want to ask, how big is it for you to have someone like Will Rogers to be able to learn from or rely on, as you have been with this organization throughout the year? How big has been Will Rogers for this series for you?
I mean, Will's been great. He's taught me a lot about road course racing. I think we kind of exchange information both ways. I teach him a lot about what goes on the oval side of the sim, and he's definitely improved. We raced via CRA, a league that runs Xfinity cars. And he definitely picked up some speed on the ovals throughout the season as I taught him. And then, just vice versa, him teaching me little things and tips and tricks on where to put the car and what to do with it just to get around road courses is definitely up my game.
Anyone you want to thank for the run?
Yeah, of course. Space Station Gaming and Will Rogers, Holiday Unit, Sean Duras, Tanner Fox, everybody over there that's supporting this outing. Hopefully we'll have some pretty big news on the horizon soon. We're still waiting to hear back from a couple people, but we're looking forward to taking this big step into the eNASCAR landscape. And I think it's going pretty well so far. And all of their partners, Champion, Raven, Scuff Gaming, Steel Series, and AK Racing.
Well, that's a big hint to keep an eye on from that news. Congratulations on the run.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Jacob Fisher, top 3 tonight. Also standing by, P4 Parker Klugerman. Much improved compared to the last race. A top 5 run. He's with Blake.
And Parker, I think you put something in the post-race chat that it was something along the lines of, my left hand might fall off after this race. Kind of walk us through that one, because obviously we know it was hard to drive, but apparently it's hard. It's hard physically as well. Talk about that.
Yeah, man, I run the H pattern, so I run most of the race with just my left hand, and I kind of run the force feedback at a level that I feel like, I don't know, mimics G forces, I guess, in some respects. Maybe it's a little too much, too heavy. But yeah, after doing whatever that was, an hour and 15 minutes or however long that race was, I was suddenly like, whoa, I actually felt that. So definitely, I probably make it way harder on myself than I should. And maybe I'll start doing the shifter paddle thing here soon, because I gotta find a little speed to compete with that Brandon Hawkins and even Scott Hecker. He had me a little bit on the long run, so I can be close. And I was quick in qualifying, but I need a little something on the long run.
I was about to say, you qualified P2, so you definitely had that short run speed. And we've heard everybody, it seems like whenever they talk about these stock cars, it's all about the rear grip. It's all about saving those rear tires. Is that kind of what you found out there?
Yeah, 100%. We were just talking about that, sort of how the tire wear works in these, and it's all about the rear grip. Sonoma's notorious for that. In real life, we spend basically the first couple laps of any run just babying the rear tires, because if you don't, you pay for it so much so and later in the run. So when we ran the other course at Sonoma, I mean, you would off turn 7, you'd have to basically act like there's an eggshell underneath that throttle pedal. So this is it's not dissimilar. It's very realistic. It's what iRacing does great. So that was fun. Thanks to Manon for putting this on, and everyone. It's a fun little league, and I got to find something. I got to start practicing. That's my biggest problem. I haven't been practicing, so I got to start doing that if I want to win.
Well, you got the time now. It seems like off season probably seems like a good time to get that done, and we'll let you get to that. So Parker, thanks for joining us, and nice job finishing 4th tonight.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for broadcasting it. Have a great night, and have a very happy Thanksgiving.
Once again, that's Parker Klugerman, P4 tonight for Klugerman Sports, and also a part of NBC Sports. Blake, entertaining race tonight. We've seen another dominant performance, though, from Brandon Hawkins, the big major favorite for this championship. Can anyone stop him is going to be the question on everybody's mind. His fastest lap, mind you, was about 0.8 to 0.7 quicker than most of the field.
Well, I think it's just one of those things when you get down to these road courses and the guys who know them so well and how to manage these cars. You even heard kind of the eagerness that Brandon Hawkins has when he talks about running these stock cars on road courses. It really just becomes a question if he's that far ahead on pace, he knows these courses that well enough. Can he beat himself? I think that's the one thing the field kind of has to ask is, obviously Brandon has such a great pace. Will he be consistent enough to not make those mistakes? I think that's eventually what you got to look down to. And as somebody that's racing around Brandon for a number of years, that's one thing that he is probably better than anything else at is staying clean, not making mistakes, being able to anticipate when moves are happening around him. He has a lot of awareness. So very aware of what's going on out there. So be hard pressed to see Brandon Hawkins slip up. So they're just going to have to hope to beat him on speed, if anything else.
Now, these drivers do have a week off, Blake, but the main thing is after that with Thanksgiving is Road America, and that is one of the biggest tracks the drivers will have to race at size-wise this season. That's not an easy track either, and mind you, the Cup Series making its way there in 2021 as well for the first time at that division, for the first time in years. From the 1960s, we're talking about the last time the Grand National Series, at the time it was called, raced there.
You're exactly right. It's something that, we're going to have to get used to. I know we mentioned it for a part of the broadcast, the whole iRating shift on official races. That's largely due in part to the fact that, of what the NASCAR Cup Series released for 2021 is this greater emphasis on road courses and being able to maintain those disciplines. It's just not enough to be able to turn left anymore. You got to learn how to wheel these race cars around any type of facility. And obviously Road America. Beautiful facility up there and a very challenging racetrack at that. And for these guys, it should be interesting to see how they're able to handle that. A lot of elevation changes, kind of like what you see here, long sweeping corners. That's kind of the name of the game at Road America. So it'll be interesting to see how those guys fare for that racetrack.
It's going to be an entertaining one, I think, absolutely. But with that, it's time to say goodbye. We'd like to thank the sponsors once again for Ring Around the Roadies, Fort Worth Screen Printing. For all your retail and contract screen printing needs, visit fwscreen.com. Nationwide shipping is available. The series also sponsored by Overton Speed Shop and McConey Setup Shop, as well as Monstop Shop. We'd also like to congratulate Brandon Hawkins once more on the victory and taking home a grand total of $40 in prize money, as he still looks to chase down that $200 championship. But with that, it's time to wave to the sunset. For our broadcast partner, Blake McCandless, for our producer, Zach Johnson, I'm Justin Prince. Enjoy the rest of your evening. You've been watching STN Racing for coverage of the McConey Setup Shop Wine Valley 100 and Ring Around the Roadies, presented by Fort Worth Screen Printing.